Hello, everyone out there in the world, the virtual comics world. Thank you for joining us at this Fantagraphics Books and Floating World Comics event in the virtual space. We're here to celebrate the release of Peepers, this gorgeous, brand new, original graphic novel through the FU Press imprint by Patrick Keck, who is here, joined by Tim Goodyear. I'm Emily Silva. I run events and social media for Fantagraphics, and I'm going to introduce these guys and then get out of here. So let's see. All right, first up, Patrick Keck grew up in Fruita, Colorado. I had to check the pronunciation of that, but has lived in Portland, Oregon for the last 10 years. Peepers is his first original graphic novel, but he's also self-published a collection of short story comics entitled Little Tomb, collecting his comics from 2007 to 2018. He collaborated with cartoonist Josh Simmons, also a Fantagraphics name, on the story Twilight of the Bat, which I believe you can find in Flayed Corpse, the collection. Also great horror comics collection out from Fantagraphics. He was a contributor to the recent All-Time Comics collection out from Floating World Comics and has had comics in every single issue of Portland's own free comics newspaper, Vision Quest. Very impressive.
Thanks.
And joining him, we have another Portlandian, Tim Goodyear. I have this excellent bio for Tim. Tim Goodyear is an artist of the comics language, as well as a publisher, editor, journalist, and so forth. Additionally, he's been a comic shop retail flunky since 1994. He doesn't have a website, but he does have a factually challenged Wikipedia page, whipped up by a wild and no longer living friend whose kind antagonism and teasing he finds too hard to correct. He asks that you please read the comics you buy, and please buy the comics that speak to your heart. Which I love. I love that. So without further ado, I'm going to let you guys get to it, talking about Peepers, and all of you out there in the audience, if you would like to ask Tim or Patrick any questions throughout, just drop them in the chat on the Facebook live stream, and I will communicate those. Okay, y'all have a good time.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you. Hey, dude.
Hi.
Hey. I was trying to figure out what's the really great question to start with, and man, obviously, here I am.
Yeah.
Without it.
That's okay.
Well, I think that Emily's like little bio reading there has sort of revealed that you've been here for 10 years or so. And
yeah, 2010.
So how soon after moving here did you start Peepers? Because this book is about 10 years old too, give or take. Am I right?
Something like that. Like I came up with the idea actually even a few years before, like the beginnings of the idea, a few years before that even. Where I saw the Crumb documentary in high school, and there's the part with one of his ex-wives talking about his book, the Book of Yum Yum. Have you read that book?
It's the kind of charming, like sort of love letter kind of comic, right?
Yeah. It stars like a little frog character and a giant naked red-haired woman. So seeing, I don't know, I think like that kind of like that imagery, I hadn't read that book up until like last week, actually, like the whole thing. I just saw like images from that film, and that sort of like stuck with me for a long time, I guess. So I ended up making like a one-page, I think the first thing I did was made like a one-page comic where it was the character Peepers and the other character Jeffrey, and like on the one page, like the only thing that happens is he makes her like a little juice smoothie like he does in the book, and that's like the whole story basically. But then I was unemployed living in LA in like 2008, and I ended up coming up with like the whole first chapter like in like a Mead notebook basically, with like office pins and colored pencils and stuff like that. And then when I moved out to Portland a couple of years later in 2010, I came out here to be a part of the Independent Publishing Resource Center's comics program that they had. Like they had like a year.
Right, yeah.
They still have a year-long program that you can take classes and kind of learn some comicking skills.
But that was the first year of that. Is that correct?
Or I don't know. The first year that they had that program, or is that what you're saying? Or
that was my impression, although maybe I'm wrong.
I'm not sure when it started. It's probably not too far after that if it wasn't the first year. I don't think it was, but could have been. And then so I had this first chapter of this story, and I decided to just start working on it as like a project for one of the classes. So started it like in 2011. Finished it. Was that last January?
Okay.
Yeah.
That was when Dylan Williams was teaching, and was Annie Murphy teaching?
She was one of the teachers. I only took like a one night class with her for maybe talking about like conventions and stuff like that. But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
It is interesting to kind of look at it knowing, the sort of the scope of time for you on that.
Yeah.
It is interesting to kind of see you sort of like tighten up the design on some of the characters, and in one instance completely rebuild the body for a character.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if that was like necessarily already pre-built into the writing or not, but I thought that was like it's interesting to watch everything kind of mutate anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. After I ended up meeting another cartoonist, Zach Soto, through the IPRC. He was my advisor. And
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And he started Study Group Comics.com like not too soon after that, and told me that I could put stuff up on there. So that was kind of like a impetus for me to start doing like a Peepers page like once a week or whatever. I can't remember. I did that for like a few years, but the whole story is not up there. But having that like sort of weekly deadline kind of helped get me to work on the story. Basically, it was a big help.
So there was some gaps there.
Yeah.
From that first chapter to when you started working on Study Group.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then after that, like kind of when you stopped posting on Study Group, did you continue to move forward at that same way, or did you take a break again?
I mean, there's lots of breaks all throughout the years. I think, like I kind of figured it out the other day that I kind of like would get like maybe 20 pages done like a year on it, and that sort of adds up to the 200-page book. So yeah, so I've been working on that, and then other like small like mini comics, or I this other collection that I did.
It's an amazing book. It's got one of my very favorite comics ever in it.
Oh, thanks. So I was working on other stuff at the during this time, and it's all basically collected, and most of it is collected in this book. So it wasn't like Peepers was the only thing I was working on.
No, I think it's really interesting how much of you've produced so much work, and yet there's this thing you've sort of been working on at the periphery of me being able to like see it.
Yeah.
Mostly because I don't read comics online, but
yeah,
that's my own fault.
It's
but
hard to do.
whatever. I just don't remember them. If I did read it, I probably would have forgot it anyways.
Yeah.
But it's just such an interesting idea that this book goes on for that long. But it's also cool. I didn't realize it, but so you learned about that Crumb book, and obviously that there was like some kind of visual impression there for you.
Yeah. I actually didn't like recently that the YouTube channel Cartoonist Kayfabe did a video about that book like last week.
Oh, okay.
That was the first time I've seen like the whole story actually.
So you didn't actually read it either. You just watched them flip through it.
Yeah. I was kind of afraid to read it after a certain point, because I was like, because I kind of took this little nugget from it. I didn't want to take any more nuggets from it, I guess. So
right. No, I had a similar thing when I was gonna publish a comic, and when I showed it to people, a lot of people were like, "Oh, it looks like this other cartoonist stuff," and they kept saying it. But it was only people that were like small press, cartoonists and publishers.
Sure.
So I went and got like a big collection of that artist's work, and I read it, and I hadn't really been into it before. I read the whole thing, and I was like, okay, I sort of see what they're saying, but it's totally different. But that was that same thing where I was like that nervous check-in where it's like, oh shit, like did I just bite off more than I could chew, and like I didn't bother to even open my eyes, like
yeah.
I think it's pretty different than the Yum Yum book.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like it to me too, which I'm thankful for.
It's cool though that you got like that one little spark from that. Did you like rent that video or something, or did you see that in the theater when you saw Crumb?
You know what? I think I might have saw it on TV, possibly at first. Yeah, I think maybe it was like on like maybe like on the IFC channel or something like that.
What a trip.
I remember I recorded it off of TV at some point. So I had like a VHS of it for a while. Just recorded off the TV. But yeah, no, it was a big deal. And then a little like when I was in college, I read the 3 like Dave Cooper books.
Ripple,
graphic novels, yeah.
Crumple,
Suckle, Ripple, and Crumple.
Suckle, that's the one I always screw up. They were in Weasel, some of them.
Right. Ripple was the last.
Yeah.
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 And those books kind of left a big impression on me. Especially the first one, which is Suckle. Suckle and Crumple both kind of take place in like a sort of fantasy science fiction.
And yeah, Suckle's like got a much smoother, kind of softer feel to the world. He isn't using that kind of that same texture at that point. And yeah, when the sort of kind of odd sex stuff happens in there, it's like kind of more surprising, I think, than it is in like, just because of the kind of like how he knew that kind of weird almost plasticine world that he was kind of creating in that style, like almost like a PVC, like liquid kind of characters. And it was interesting to see him like kind of push on those, you can kind of peel back the layers on that.
Yeah, I just read the Comics Journal interview with him from around the time that he was working on Ripple. With Patrick McCune, his friend that
McEwen, I'm not certain, but I know that guy's amazing also.
Yeah, it's so, I mean, their story is so cool. Like they both started working at this bizarre, Aircell Canadian comics company, like when they were both like 13 or something.
It's an air conditioner company turned comics publisher.
Yeah. So yeah, it was great to finally read that, because that period of his comics was just.
Well, I mean, God, they were really young. They were like real teenagers. They weren't like 18 or 19 or something. They were like fucking like 15 or something 15, like that. You know? Like, did you read that book, Dan and Larry?
Yes, that was another one.
Yeah. So that's like another whatever odd twist to that story.
Totally. Yeah.
It's just like, oh, this is pretty awkward.
Yeah. Yeah. So I injected some awkwardness into my book as well.
It's interesting though, I guess, that like we're kind of touching on some like non-erotic sexuality in comics with some of these things we're talking about too. And I feel like that's a big part of the like sexual stuff in this book is it's not like an eros or like some kind of like Elva Bora or some kind of porno thing. It's interesting though, because it definitely pushes it to the point where it's like, this is clearly an adult comic, but also at the same time, it's like not some kind of spank rag for somebody. This is like more of an emotional trauma kind of, psychedelic kind of situation, and not pop psychedelic. Excuse me, as a burp. It's not like a pop psychedelic though. It's like it's almost like one of those like guided trip like acid therapy kind of sessions almost, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does make sense. I like the sound of that, actually. It sounds healing. So I think that that sounds
It's
good.
beautiful, but yeah, it's like heavy. It's not like some kind of just like floaty pop thing, you know?
Sure.
It's like, come and look at the beautiful wandering journey that Pat's laid out for you or something. It's
there's some terror in there too.
It slides into the Hino a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
It is interesting though. I was kind of looking at it and thinking like, oh, okay, like is there like some kind of existing comics demographic that like you could pigeonhole with this book? And I was sort of just kind of pontificating on that, and it's interesting. I think I feel like it doesn't like fit genre in any kind of specific way, although you play with like sci-fi in there.
Yeah.
That almost feels like it's like a vehicle though for whatever's going on.
Yeah, I think so. There's no hard sci-fi elements in there. It's all just
root beer.
Yeah. Exactly.
Go ahead.
Oh, do you want me to show any of the pages from the book yet, or?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to like pop up a page whenever you want to. I know we
Okay.
probably referred to something. I think very early on we referred to a page, but at your discretion. I'm sure that looking at us talking is probably not that exciting for people at home. They're like begging for some kind of visual stimulation here.
Yeah. Did you just pick this image out as like I asked you to pick some images out?
Yeah, I guess this was just. I really liked that this wasn't like overbearing or anything like that, and that it had your name very clear, and that it's really yellow. So I guess those were my yeah.
I feel like your love of yellow really like that imprinted on me. Like I feel like I put like a lot of yellow in this book just from your.
I do like the yellow. I'm glad to know that I had some kind of positive yellow powers here.
You did. I like there's this like jar of like yellow watercolor that I used like just throughout like the whole book. Not the same. I bought like several jars of it, but yeah, I just like fell in love with yellow.
And it's so easy to twist it too, you know?
Yeah.
It's very strong, but it's also like very easily manipulated into something else. I'm not very good with that stuff, but it's also amazing to see. I mean, this is all like hand. What kind of watercolors were you using on this stuff, or is there? I see some marker in there too, here and there.
Yeah, it's a mix of stuff, really. I mean, a lot of watercolor, and then a lot of marker, colored pencil, acrylic paint, and just like indie ink. But yeah, I kind of wanted to have it all just like a mixed media sort of effect, I guess. So
yeah, no, it comes off really good. Hold on a second. What's up? Yeah, go do your thing, dude. It's cool. All right. Sorry. I gave him too much beans and rice.
How could you?
I know. That's what happens when you let them have the high chew. Oh, this page is amazing, and then not just because of the yellow, but I love this kind of this like rainbow juice.
Yeah, this is actually when I first came up with this story and did like that first chapter in like a Mead notebook. I don't think I worked this part out of it. This was like something that I worked out when I kind of did my second go around at it, and yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite pages too.
When you were writing it, did you write yourself a script, or were you just writing behaviors, or what did it look like?
I would, it kind of depends. Like sometimes I would like be able to get ahead of myself and like just work out like just like small thumbnails of each page. And then sometimes it would be like I would have like a chunk of those like worked out. And then sometimes I would just be like working on that, weekly deadline of just trying to figure out what the next page would be because I wasn't exactly sure. So there was a lot of improvising, but after a few years, I kind of was able to work like halfway through the book is kind of when I maybe like figured out what the ending would be and different things that I would want to try to connect to just while working on it. So there was a lot of improving throughout the process.
Did you wind up doing any editing afterwards?
Not a lot. I mean, a lot of the times I would like finish a page and that would be it. Like it would just, it was like a pretty much a steady stream, which I sometimes feel like is, you know, something that, I don't know. I feel like it's like not a positive, maybe.
It wasn't a great, it wasn't, you don't think it was,
well, I don't know. I think you should be able to look and edit yourself. Maybe more than I did, but maybe I'm editing more than I know than I am. I don't know. It feels like I come up with like the thumbnail and there's not too much in between. Like I almost like first thoughts a lot of times, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those are probably the best instinct to go with artistically.
So I'll go to the next page here. Not too far along in the story.
I don't, I tried to not show anything from the back half of the book, which is really interesting because I feel like the front half of the book, we meet these characters and they're both in like massive transition, essentially. Peepers is leaving mysteriously. I mean, we kind of understand, but it seems like she has other reasons that don't become ever completely spoken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obviously. And then we see Jeff like twist himself pretty severely, pretty early on too.
Right.
I think I just maybe picked this page just because it had a nice little kind of singular quality. There's a question here at the bottom about the little tomb.
Oh, okay. What is it?
I believe the name of that comic that is one of my favorite comics is Come to the Ice Cream.
Yep, that's right.
Yes,
I remember you saying that you liked it. That's
yeah. I think that one's really great.
True story.
That's I wonder how it reads in amongst all the other pieces in there. I don't like whatever its neighboring comic is, but I don't
remember either.
That's that comic has a really kind of attractive, haunting quality for me.
I feel like I worked on it a lot, like early in the morning too, like before work.
Okay.
So it has maybe the early morning haunting quality injected.
Yeah,
as well.
the dream brain.
Right. Yeah. Totally. Let's see what's next here. This guy.
I really just felt like this was maybe just like kind of exploiting how cute this like professor dog dude is with like root beer foam blasting all over him.
Totally. He is a cutie.
These colors are really fantastic too. It's funny to see it digitally and so small. When I was reading it, I didn't even see what you were doing in the frame in the gutters.
Oh yeah.
It almost has like Linda Berry like quality now that I look at just on the edges there.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
You know how she used to kind of, and she'll still do it, but she kind of would paint the covers of those books, the earlier ones.
I don't know if I know exactly what you mean, but
there was a period there where you could see like her hand painting on the covers.
Oh, okay.
Of some of those books, and I always thought that was really great.
Yeah.
I guess for people, I guess the idea is that people get an idea of what this book is about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
See if they want to buy it.
That would be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like it does have that. I feel like it's got this. Oh man, it's almost like. Do you mind if I like make combinations of other artists' names?
Please. Yeah. No. Go ahead. Yeah.
It's got like sort of a Peanuts, but more like sort of like the animated Peanuts cartoons thing, but sort of with the Ralph Bakshi holding the reins, but maybe like with some Ziggy on top of it too.
Oh, I'm glad you thought of Ziggy. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, the Ziggy combo is really nice in here. I feel like you have such a great balance in the way you draw and the way your characters sort of the way the weight of your characters, how you have them kind of like tipping and leaning, and it seems like there's it seems like their body is like squishing and flopping,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's like a nice quality of that also in Ziggy.
Have you read a lot of Ziggy comics, or?
A lot is probably would be not factual. I've read Ziggy when I found him. I'm on and off over the years. I think growing up, you'd see him in the paper.
Yeah, that's the only impression that I have of just like Ziggy in the background of my life was always it's just like a comforting character to look at.
Yeah, and I think he also became sort of a greeting card sort
Sure.
of character.
Yeah.
Also, I
Yeah.
feel like he kind of slid into the other parts of the Hallmark kind of world or something, and so he'd almost be this kind of like Zen Eeyore type of character or
Right.
something like that in some instances, like
Right.
kind of proto Forrest Gump or something,
Yeah.
But
I don't know anything about that cartoonist either, who made that. But
I'm not I'm not very well versed in that the history of that stuff. I had heard a little trivia that Craig Yo had been somewhat instrumental in getting that strip into the paper, or maybe just going, which is, I mean, I know people have grumps about that guy sometimes, but
yeah,
if he helped Ziggy, then it's like really going to be hard to completely grump out on that guy.
Yeah.
Unless you hate Ziggy, in which case you can just log right out of the video,
Yeah.
obviously.
Leave now.
These people don't wear slippers or anything. They should go be in the hills hiking or whatever. Yeah, man, I don't know. I think rereading the book on the second read, it was I felt more comfortable with it.
Okay.
I think there is kind of like a high level of emotional distress really early on in the book.
Yeah.
Which, I think is it's really effective and it works well. I think that maybe the audience should be aware of that, though. It doesn't it's not like beckoning you into the story. It's like kind of hit the ground running.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Some pacing in comics is like a weird thing. It's like
Definitely.
one way inside your brain, and then it's different for like everyone else that reads it. Like I feel like the way that I pace this comic, like you could take your time reading it and it wouldn't feel like it was like something that just kind of rushes past you. But I mean, you can everyone can read comics pretty fast. And
it does seem like a lot of people are in a rush to read their comics.
Yeah.
Is that how you read your comics?
I mean, I try to slow down for sure. I feel like just as like we keep moving into the future, like everything, of course, needs to be going faster or something. So I try to be like conscious of slowing down, and like I definitely have to like reread things like over and over again to fully like feel like I'm, immersing myself or getting the gist.
With a comic specifically?
No, I mean, it's probably not as difficult for me with a comic, but even still, like I feel like it's gotten harder for some reason.
Just with everything being overbearing?
I think so. Yeah.
It does seem like like the stress about time and the value of time and like the economy of people's life really can be disruptive to their like enjoyment of art.
Yeah.
Or just chilling out.
Yeah. Just chilling
it is funny
out.
though, I mean, that's a thing when you're making your comic. It's like, how do you discern like at what rate you want the reader to read?
Yeah.
Do you need to like bog them down with text when you want to stop them, or just give them like an insane amount of detail when you want to slow them down?
Right.
Does that work? Not if they don't like that, not if they skip over the text. There's so much control on the reader's end.
Yeah.
Did you, when you went back to work on pages, did you reread what you had done up to that point?
You mean like if I've like taken a break or something and gone back?
Right, like let's say you're working on page like 25. Did you like go for the kind of cruise to the first 24 pages before you sat down and like kind of got to it?
I would occasionally, but I feel like a lot of times like it was like, even, and especially since with how long it took me like to finish it, it almost just felt like it was totally like ingrained in my brain. Like I didn't need to go back and check on things so much, even though that I probably did. But
you didn't have to refresh it. You could kind of, the whole world of that was already completely solid for you.
I wouldn't say solid, but like I don't know. I'm lost in thought right now.
Oh no, it's fine. It's sometimes, when you're kind of making a story, or you're coming up with some ideas, you can kind of, you recognize there's an interesting direction to wander in.
Sure.
But sometimes when you're doing that stuff, also you kind of like really know where that world is, and even though you're not writing about what's like one block over from this where the story's taking place, you kind of already know,
Right.
what kind of neighborhood that is, and like who lives over there. And
yeah.
That may never show up in the piece. I guess I was just wondering, like, was that sort of how that the previous pages had worked out for you, that you knew that neighborhood already?
I don't know. It was really like I feel like it's just like a day, working on the pages weekly. I feel like I did just kind of figure out a lot of stuff just by forcing myself to work on it. I don't know if everything's like, like built out in my mind, like the whole world necessarily.
I was just curious because I kind of, I don't know, it seemed like after a while I was like pretty familiar with how the characters were behaving,
Mm-hmm.
and it really seemed like there was a lot of variety there, but it still felt very comfortable. Like you have a really amazing quality with like organic landscapes, and there's this kind of, you sort of turn like the inside of the human body, or the inside of the planets, the meat baby planet's body, that sort of cross section that you start doing of the anatomy being also part of the landscape, but also that you've got it kind of, like they're both being sort of digested or processed, and simultaneously next to each other, in sort of like mirror organs of this planet. That stuff was really phenomenal, and I don't know, I guess I just felt like maybe that there was like sort of a strong internal kind of like idea of that place.
I guess so.
And I guess I'm not trying to grill you about the whatever.
No.
The meatball baby planet or whatever, but
no, you can grill me, but I don't know. I don't know. I think it's just a love for that sort of organic matter. I think it's just fun to draw and just kind of like take little pieces from different anatomy books and mash them together, and so that none of it makes really any sense anatomically, but it's all really fun to draw and fun to look at, I think.
Well, and when you follow it, it does have an organic flow to it. There's a little orgasmic flow later. But I told you I wasn't going to talk about the back half, and here I am. Yeah. I'm digging this the watercolor background you had on that previous page that just flipped away.
This one.
Yeah, I like that. I like that effect.
Yeah, I feel like I wanted to use, like how we said earlier, a lot of yellow, but also a lot of like orangey brown, kind of just like referencing like, I don't know, like Sesame Street cartoons from like the 70s sort of feel or something.
It's definitely, I mean, it has that sort of that kind of 70s like sort of bohemian kind of yellows and sepias and oranges and thing going on. You don't mess around with that avocado green too much, which might be a safe call, but
do I not? I'm trying to think.
Your greens are pretty bright, as I recall. I mean, on this page they are.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I feel like I try to. I didn't have like any good like dark greens to use, maybe, or so. Like I feel like I maybe like tried those occasionally and wasn't very happy with the way they turned out on the page. So maybe I just stayed away from them.
Yeah, and it has like a cooling effect, which you have a lot of warm kind of stuff happening.
Yeah.
Did you want to flip to that other page?
Oh,
Sorry,
sure.
I feel like I kind of like
no, it's okay.
Forced us to go backwards. This page was just bonkers. I was just like, oh man, how are you not going to show this page? It almost looks like it's from a different comic, I think we skipped over probably a good number of pages.
Yeah, from the last page. Yeah, I tried to like, each page is pretty much like its own thing. Like I tried to have, I want you to be able to recognize all the characters or whatever, but like when I started the comic, I wanted each page to just be like, I could just be like kind of as free as I wanted to be, because I thought that would help me finish the book in a way, and it also just makes it funner for me to work on. So there's a lot of, each page like varies a lot throughout the whole book. So
it's interesting to kind of recognize that those changes going through the narrative, but it happens really smoothly. It's like you kind of tumble into it, There is a big kind of shift that you were saying around the middle there. It seemed like your drawing style kind of became a little more, I don't know, if it was more pen heavy in the back half, or if there was something about it that was graphically simpler.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. Yeah, I kind of started relying more like on like technical pens, I feel like, towards the back half of the book. Where the front of the half of the book, I would, there's a lot more like, like brush or like, like a pen nib and then I don't know if that was just like me, it just like kind of like made the process a little faster, maybe just using the tech pins towards the back of the book. But yeah, definitely kind of like, and it also kind of like makes things a little more clearer, I feel like, towards the back half of the book. More like almost like a clear line style. Not quite really, but
it seems like you're using like the black line like more as like sort of as like an anchor.
Yeah.
And then in the earlier stuff, it seems like you're doing a lot of line work in the color. You were saying about that kind of that Sesame Street sort of thing, the Jim Henson type of thing. It's interesting because I feel like a lot of the material in here sort of has an echo to like, it's interesting, we have Sesame Street and then you get the Muppets, and that's like a little bit sketchier behavior in the Muppets than, I mean, they're like in bars and there's, they're like, they're driving around and smoking, and you can kind of tell some characters are probably not sober.
Yeah.
And then you get like, you wander into like Dark Crystal or something like that. And it seems like you've definitely kind of found those moments, those kind of where it gets freaky, like when Willy Wonka takes him on the boat, and it starts getting dark.
Definitely.
I feel like you kind of really held the reins really tightly on sort of keeping that tone through there, where it's just like, oh, where's it going? This doesn't look like it's going to be a good idea. Like, this is if you move,
That's good to hear.
I like that you kind of focused on that sort of the conflict is like each character's internal conflict is what's pushing it forward, but it has nothing, it's not a plot device either. And again, I guess that's what I was saying about at the beginning, when you just kind of like fall into this situation where like dude's freaking out and people are leaving and everyone's got completely different emotional reactions to this situation.
Right.
And just like, kind of like keeps like kind of shipwrecking himself on each decision or something.
Right. Let's see. This was another page I was pretty happy with.
I thought that this page was just, again, that was another one of those ones where when I made this list of pages that maybe to put up, it was purely from the visual, like kind of standpoint. I threw a few out because they had, they had spoilers. Was there a question there from Clotfelter?
Oh, I didn't see.
I think it popped up there. I think. Max, ask your question again. What's your favorite something or other? Oh, there's lots of stuff here.
Oh, wow.
What's your favorite sauce for stir fry? This has got to be for you, Pac. You're like known for your interest in condiments and dips.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Well, that's different than a stir fry sauce, I guess. I mean, I'd go for peanut, I guess.
Yeah.
Personally, yeah. What about you?
When I'm making a stir fry, I usually use like a little bit of I use like the fish sauce.
Okay.
Just a little bit, because otherwise, it kind of starts smelling like shoes or whatever.
Right.
But then I have like there's like some miso in there typically, and then I've got some anchovy pastes.
Oh wow, you've got all sorts.
That's not really a sauce, but yeah. And I found the anchovy paste was a little more easy to control, and I was happier putting that in there.
That sounds. Wow, I like the mixtures you're making with your sauces.
I thought that, it's okay. It's I might not be recommending this for the viewers. There's a question on here too about was there like a trickiness in accurately reproducing the color and mixed media stuff that you were doing when it went to print? Did you do the production on that stuff?
I mean, while I was working on it, was I kind of figured out what things kind of scanned the best, and like just like how to get like towards the beginning of the book, like I feel like there's pages that the color doesn't work quite as well. So it was kind of a, definitely a learning process. But a lot of the pages are all pretty much just like raw scans of the artwork where I just kind of cleaned up the edges or like whatever, like little bits that I would pick up on the scans. And then I don't think that Fantagraphics did too much more to the pages, from what I know, to make them any different.
Do you know who did the production on your book?
I think it was Paul Barish is his name. Let's double check. Yes, Paul Barish. Cool. And Justin Allen Spencer worked on the cover design with me.
Was that, did you rework that piece from inside the book, or was that just from the inside the book?
Just from inside the book. He selected it and kind of worked out how it would look on the cover. So
there was also a question on there about, is Little Tomb still available? And what's the answer to that?
Oh yeah, I used a print on demand service for that book. So it is you basically, if you just type in Little Tomb and Patrick Keck on Google, there'll be like a couple different places where you can order it from, like Amazon or Barnes and Noble or places like that. So
is the quality the same from each?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard from anyone about that. So
I liked the cover stock on the ones that I bought from you at Short Run.
Yeah, no,
it kind of made me start to think like, oh, maybe print on demand's getting to the point where I can accept it.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with it.
Shaky.
They didn't have like a lot of like options for like the inside paper stock, which I wasn't crazy about. But overall, I was happy with it, and it was pretty cheap to produce too. So that was
cool.
Yeah.
Here's a question.
Oh, okay.
What's that? Oh, what's your question?
I was gonna say, should we play the trailer at some point soon? You think, or should we ask some more questions?
Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, okay. It says 15 minutes. So there you go.
Okay.
But there's also a question here. Somebody wants to know about the name Peepers and where did it come from?
That's a good question. I think I wanted that character to have a very silly sounding, cartoony, almost like a Peanuts kind of word for a name.
And that's the character that's on the screen right now for anybody who's not certain, that the red-haired lady.
So there wasn't a ton of thought put into it. I just remember it being like, that's her name, basically.
Was that from very, very early on?
Yeah. There wasn't like, and I didn't, I didn't make like a list of like names to choose from or anything. It's just like that's it. That's the name. So there's not a lot to the. I mean, I kind of like its relationship to like eyeballs as well, I guess. Visual things, but I wanted something that was silly and cartoony sounding. So yeah.
Well, it's cool too because you do a lot of like cross-section stuff in there, and so it really does sort of play in for also the viewer with an additional kind of layer of meaning. Also, we do get some cross sections of her mind and interesting interactions with the inside of her mind with sort of parasitic kind of external, characters like talking to the brain. There's the portions where like she's inside of her brain also. Is that his manifestation, or is that her manifestation dealing with him as an actual physical presence?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I kind of always thought of it as just a manifestation coming from her, but yeah, it could be just all coming from Jeffrey. Never thought of it that way.
Well, I questioned it at a certain point, I was like, oh, is he just her internal manifestation of him, the character that we all play with inside of our head or something of somebody else, when you kind of test something, you're like, what if I said this to Pat? Like, what would he say? He probably would say no, like he doesn't like that kind of shit, and I think that's something that was interesting because some of the conflicts there were kind of similar to things that I'd experienced in the past while drawing for long periods of time, where I'd kind of fixate on like some kind of just small verbal conflict with somebody and kind of allow that to really unravel into huge, tremendously big emotional sort of reactions from me.
Oh yeah.
To the point where, you know, like ruining your drawing or whatever like that, you know, you've like ground the pencil like through the paper or something.
Oh yeah.
And so it was nice. I mean, I like that you sort of, you weave in and out of that stuff in a very interesting way from the internal to the external without there being any kind of disconnection. That's something actually I noticed when I was reading the first Dune novel.
Oh.
Was, you know, because and everybody always brings up the movies and the movie whatever, and you know, and I was sort of looking at it, you know, just the writing of it after I read a chapter and kind of thinking like, man, within the same sentence, you know, he's like explaining like a portion of the room, a character's physical presence, part of their, you know, heritage, and then also like their internal thought. It's like, oh man, you can't do that in a movie. Like, no wonder like people aren't satisfied with that movie.
Well, they
and
try. I feel like.
I feel like that's a really interesting hurdle to try to come across for a movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like movies have, you know, such the collage quality that they could, you know, they could with sound, especially in time control, could maybe do that.
Yeah.
But they're also so trapped with time. But you actually managed to do that very smoothly here. Not that I'm recommending you do any kind of Dune adaptation or anything. I don't think you need a project of that size, probably.
No.
But I thought that was a really cool sort of once I had recognized that move in a book, it was cool to see you actually doing that in the comic.
Oh wow, that's great to hear.
And with that, do you want to show that video?
Oh sure.
Okay. I might have just jabbered away our 15 minutes.
That's okay. Let's see here. Before I play the video, I just wanted to say that my friends, Will Iverson, helped me animate. Well, he animated this whole thing and directed it basically. I helped a little bit. There's parts where we cut out like paper printouts from the comic and just like shot a few shots that are mostly at the beginning of the trailer. So that's where I helped with it, but he basically did the whole thing and animated like pages from the comic. And then my other friend Thomas Stimmeridge wrote and performed the music that goes along with it.
Good morning, stars, you're the reason that the suns are on fire. Good morning, star stuff. Can we please just stay asleep for a while? Launch begins at 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Call off the launch if you're not here. None of us needs ears.
That video is even better after reading the book. Also.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So another one of those, like, yeah, like, you know, it's I guess we didn't really touch on it, even though we had maybe talked about it, but the what a nightmare. Well, I guess we were just talking about like sort of the that weird cross section of, you know, how things look like, you know, from a kid's book or something, but they're not for kids.
Yes.
And how frustrating and awkward that is for people, but also how as a kid you kind of bump up against the edge of this stuff. You're like, what the fuck is this? This isn't for me?
Yeah.
Is this for me? Like, what is this adult world, you know, that has like weird fucked up shit like this?
Yeah.
And obviously that Jim Henson thing really plays that line. You know, you can see that guy is like not necessarily trying to make kid stuff,
right,
even though he is.
Yeah. No, and he was huge for me. For sure.
But I feel like this book has that too, where it looks, like when we were watching it as an animated piece there, and Peepers was in like the outer space and stuff. I was like, oh, this is very Dr. Seuss like kind of feeling almost.
Yeah.
This thing won't stop beeping. I'm sorry, man.
Okay.
Welcome to my world.
No problem. A nice little capper at the end.
Yeah, there you go. The alarm means that the video's over. Now go buy the fucking book.
Please, yes.
Please, yes.
Thanks so much for coming, everyone. Thanks, Patrick and Tim, for doing this. I hope that your home is not ablaze, Tim.
Nope.
I'm sure it's fine.
Everything is fine.
And yes, please go pick up a copy of the book from Floating World Comics in Portland. You'll get a beautiful hand drawn and colored book plates signed by Patrick. They're gorgeous. You can see them on his Instagram. I want one personally. And yeah, thanks again for coming. All right, I'm gonna end this dang live stream.
Thanks everybody. Thanks.
Good night.
Thanks, Emily.
Good morning, stars.